with the sound of traffic rushing past the crowded streets of Surulere, Lagos. The sun was already high, casting warm light on the small wooden shop with a faded signboard that read, Amara Beauty Hub. It was tiny compared to the large, glass-fronted salons in the area, but every morning Amara wiped the windows carefully, arranged her 3 plastic chairs, cleaned her combs, and opened her doors with quiet hope. Amara was known for having gentle hands. Her braids were neat, her parts were straight, and her touch felt calming. Customers often said that sitting in her chair was like escaping the noise of Lagos for a moment. But even with praise, the truth was painful. Amara's salon was barely surviving. That morning, she sat alone for almost an hour before the first customer arrived. It was Mrs. Chinyere, a kind woman who had been one of her earliest supporters. As Amara braided her hair, she smiled politely, but her heart was heavy. She knew that if business continued like this, she might lose the shop. After Mrs. Chinyere left, Amara looked around the empty salon. The single mirror she owned had a crack at the corner. The fan beside her barely worked. The rent was due in 2 weeks, and she had only saved enough to cover half. Her thoughts drifted back to the years she spent training under Madame Loretta, a famous Lagos stylist who cared more about money than her apprentices. While others learned the art of styling, Amara spent most of her days sweeping hair and washing towels. Loretta only allowed her to style hair when customers were too many. But those small chances were enough for Amara to fall in love with the craft. Now, sitting in her tiny shop, she wondered if her dream had betrayed her. By afternoon, 2 university students came in for braids. They loved the result and even took pictures in front of the shop. Their excitement warmed Amara's heart. Maybe things would get better. But then hours passed again, with no more customers. Amara stepped outside to breathe. The scent of roasted plantain floated from the roadside. Children ran past laughing. Life continued as usual, but she felt stuck in place. She wanted to cry, but she held herself together. Her family depended on her. Her mother's small stall was failing. Her younger brother's medical bills were rising again. They were already behind on rent at home. She closed the shop at sunset, exhausted from both work and worry. As she walked home, she whispered a small prayer, asking for strength. She did not know that the path she was about to take, one moment of desperation, would change everything in her life and the lives of her customers. But for now, she only wanted to sleep. Tomorrow, she believed, would be better.
The sun had barely risen over Lagos when Amara stepped out of her small, crowded room. From the outside, nothing about her looked stressed. She walked with confidence, her makeup was always perfect, and she spoke with calm elegance that made customers trust her instantly. But deep inside, she was a shaking tower trying not to collapse. She checked her phone again, another message from her mother. Hospital said, "We must pay half today. Please try." Amara closed her eyes for a brief moment. Her younger brother, Chidi, only 12, had been sick for weeks. Doctors still did not know exactly what was wrong. The tests alone were draining every savings the family had. Her mother's shop, once a lively little food stall that brought neighbors every morning, was now almost empty. Business had crashed, customers had vanished, and the debts from suppliers kept piling like rain clouds waiting to burst. Every night, Amara heard her mother crying in the small kitchen, and every night she pretended she did not hear it, because she did not know how to comfort her without breaking down too. She wore the title of Lagos's most gifted hairstylist like shining jewelry, but behind it was a girl fighting a battle nobody could see. As she walked to the bus stop, She whispered to herself, "Today will be better." She repeated it even though deep inside she was not sure. The traffic was already building as she squeezed into the bus heading toward Victoria Island. She had styled some of the richest women in Lagos, women who paid more for one hairstyle than her family spent on food for an entire week. But recently, customers had started complaining about her prices. Some praised her talent, but still wanted discounts. Others promised to come back, but never returned. Every lost customer felt like a stone thrown at her chest. When she arrived at the salon, a luxurious glass building with gold lettering, she greeted her coworkers with a smile she did not feel. Sandra, one of the newer stylists, waved at her. "You look tired," Sandra whispered. Amara smiled again, but this time weakly. "Just Lagos stress." She did not dare to explain anything more. Because the moment people knew you were struggling, gossip started, and gossip could ruin her reputation faster than anything else. While she arranged her tools at her station, her phone vibrated again. This time it was her father. The message was short. "Landlord came again. If we don't pay something this week, he will lock the house." Her fingers tightened around her comb. She felt the room grow smaller, the walls closer, her heartbeat louder. For a moment she stared at her reflection in the mirror. The perfect eyebrows, the flawless skin, the steady posture. A lie. She was a walking lie. She had dreams once. She wanted to open her own high-end salon, hire young, talented girls from humble backgrounds, and change their lives, just like she wanted to change her own. But dreams felt far away when a family was sinking, and she was the only one trying to keep them above water. As she began braiding a client's hair, her hands worked fast and gracefully, but her mind wandered from problem to problem. The medical bills, the rent, the debts, her mother's fading smile, Chidi's weak voice whenever she called him. She wished someone would help her. She wished someone would see the fear she carried every day. But nobody did. To everyone else, she was still Amara, the beautiful stylist who always had everything under control. By the time she finished for the day, her shoulders ached. She checked her earnings. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. Still, she tried to be hopeful. "Tomorrow will be better," she whispered again. But as she walked home under the dim Lagos streetlights, she knew her life was slowly turning into a trap, and she did not know how much longer she could keep pretending she wasn't falling.
Amara could not sleep that night. She turned from side to side on the small mattress she shared with her younger sister, but her mind refused to rest. Her mother's exhausted face kept flashing in her thoughts. Chidi's weak voice replayed in her ears. Every bill, every debt, every fear piled on her chest until breathing felt like work. By midnight, she sat up slowly, hugging her knees. The room was quiet, except for the gentle hum of the ceiling fan. Moonlight pushed through the thin curtains, drawing faint lines across the wall. Her eyes drifted to her small Salon bag beside the wardrobe. That was when an old memory returned, one she had tried to forget. It was from 3 years ago, when she was still working under Madame Foloshade, her first employer in Surulere. Madame Foloshade was known for her strict rules and expensive products. Whenever something did not meet her standard, she threw it away immediately. Amara remembered the day the woman tossed out a jar of relaxer cream, one the supplier had mistakenly given them. The relaxer was extremely strong, designed for coarse hair, but customers had complained that it caused scalp irritation. Some said it burned faster than normal. Madame Foloshade hated complaints, so she threw the whole box into storage and told everyone never to touch it. But Amara
curious and young, had checked the jar later. She remembered reading the ingredients. The product was powerful, too powerful, but if used carefully, it made hair unbelievably straight and shiny. It worked faster than the regular ones and lasted much longer. It was dangerous. Everyone said so. But it was also effective. A tool that could bring in customers who wanted perfect hair in half the time. A tool that could make her money faster. A tool that Madame Folashade had eventually planned to dispose of for good. Amara swallowed hard. She remembered exactly where that leftover box had been kept in the old salon before she left the job. And she also remembered that on her last day, the manager had given her permission to take any old, unused items from the storage room since they were cleaning out. She had taken 2 jars out of curiosity, not because she planned to use them. She just wanted to read more about them, maybe study the formula one day. She never used them. They had been sitting in a dusty corner of her room for years. Now, as she sat in the darkness, her mind began to chase the idea she had been avoiding. What if those jars could help her? She shook her head quickly, trying to force the thought away. No, it was too risky. The relaxer was strong, too strong. Madame Folashade threw it away for a reason. A single mistake could burn someone's scalp badly. It could ruin her entire career. But then, another voice whispered inside her. Your brother is sick. Your mother is drowning in debt. You cannot continue like this. She pressed her palms against her face, feeling the pressure build behind her eyes. She did not want to be greedy. She did not want to be careless. She only wanted something, anything that could change her situation before everything collapsed. Her heart beat faster as the idea grew stronger. If she used the cream on just 1 or 2 trusted customers, if she measured the timing carefully, if the result was perfect, word would spread fast. Rich women loved quick results. Rich women were ready to pay for anything that made them look flawless with less time and less stress. Amara stood up slowly and walked to the wardrobe. Her hands trembled as she reached for the small box pushed far into the corner. She placed it on the bed. Her breath shook. Inside were the 2 jars, still sealed, untouched, waiting. A shiver ran down her spine. She knew she was crossing a dangerous line. She knew this choice could change everything, either for the better or for the worst. But desperation was louder than caution. She whispered into the darkness, almost as if asking someone unseen for permission. Just 1 client, just 1 test. Maybe this is the breakthrough I need. And as her fingers brushed over the jars, she did not realize that the moment she opened that box, the path of her life was already changing, quietly, silently, dangerously. She took a deep breath, placed the box back under her bed, and lay down again. Sleep did not come, only the thought of what she might do tomorrow.
Amara woke up the next morning feeling as if she had carried a heavy load all night. Her eyes were swollen and her head hurt from thinking too much. She moved out of bed quietly so she wouldn't wake her sister, then walked to the small bathroom at the back of the house. When she looked into the cracked mirror, she almost did not recognize the person staring back. She looked scared. She looked unsure. She looked like someone standing in front of a cliff with no idea whether to jump or turn back. She splashed water on her face, but it did not wash away her fear. Her mind kept returning to the 2 jars under her bed. For a moment, she stood still in the bathroom, thinking of her mother's message from the night before. She remembered her father's warning about the landlord. She remembered Chitty coughing weakly on the phone. The problems felt like ropes tightening around her neck. By the time she left for work, she had already made up her mind, even though she tried to pretend she hadn't. She held her salon bag tighter than usual, almost protective, almost guilty. At the bus stop, the morning noise of Lagos filled the air. Horns, shouting, footsteps, engines.
Normally, these sounds distracted her. Today, she heard nothing but her own heartbeat. When she arrived at the salon, she went straight to her corner and set down her bag. Her hands were shaking as she unzipped it. She checked to make sure no one was looking. Sandra was busy with a customer. Michael was sweeping. The receptionist was on the phone. Quietly, Amara removed a small plastic mixing bottle. Then, with a trembling breath, she took out the jar of harsh relaxer she had hidden deep inside her bag. She opened it slowly, her nose catching the sharp chemical smell immediately. She almost closed it again, fear rising in her throat. But her mind whispered, just a tiny amount, just once. Her family needed money. She needed customers who would pay higher. She needed something that would make her stand out again. Her hands moved before her heart could stop them. She scooped out a very tiny amount, no bigger than the tip of her smallest finger, and mixed it into her regular scalp oil. The oil diluted the relaxer quickly. She shook the bottle gently, watching the mixture swirl together. Her stomach twisted. She knew what she was doing was wrong, but she also hoped, that using a tiny amount would not hurt anyone. It would only make the results faster and smoother, just enough to bring customers back. She whispered, only today, only one client. After this, I stop. A lie she didn't yet know was a lie. Around noon, her first customer for the day arrived. A woman named Ifeoma, one of her regulars. Ifeoma smiled warmly and sat down at Amara's station. You look tired, she said softly. Yes, I didn't sleep well, Amara replied, forcing the smile. She began applying the oil mixture to Ifeoma's scalp, working carefully and slowly so she could watch for any reaction. But everything looked normal. Ifeoma even complimented how cool the oil felt. The result was beautiful. The woman's hair looked straighter, shinier, almost flawless. When Ifeoma left the salon, Amara breathed for the first time that day. Maybe it was fine. Maybe she had worried too much. Maybe this was the small miracle she needed. She allowed herself to relax for the first time in days. But the next morning, everything changed. The door burst open as soon as Amara arrived. Ifeoma walked in quickly, her face tight with worry. Ifeoma, something is wrong. She lifted her wig. My scalp has been itching since last night. I couldn't sleep. It feels like something is burning under my skin. Amara's heart dropped. She felt the blood drain from her face. Her first wrong step had already shown its consequence. And she knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning of a much bigger problem she could no longer escape.
For the rest of that morning, Amara moved slowly, careful not to show the panic trapped inside her chest. When Ifeoma complained about the itching, Amara apologized gently and told her it was probably a normal reaction. She examined the woman's scalp. There was redness, yes, but nothing severe, nothing that looked dangerous. Amara quickly mixed a soothing oil and massaged it into her scalp. The itching eased slightly, and Ifeoma sighed in relief. Thank you, Amara. Please, whatever you used before, can you use it again, but treat me when I have this itching? My hair has never looked this good. Amara froze. That sentence stayed inside her mind even after the woman left. My hair has never looked this good. Treat me when I have this itching. The guilt inside her did not disappear. It only became quieter. That evening, something shocking happened. 3 more previous customers walked in unexpectedly. Each one said almost the same thing. My scalp has been itching since your last treatment. Can you help me soothe it? What did you use? My hair looks amazing. Every complaint was paired with praise. Every bit of itching came with admiration. And while their discomfort worried Amara, the results on their hair were undeniable. The shine was deeper, the smoothness lasted longer, and the straightness looked like something from a luxury advertisement. The news spread faster than she expected. By the end of the week, 10 more customers walked into the salon saying, I heard your treatment works wonders.
Please do that thing you did for my friend. I'll pay anything." Amara's hands shook each time she mixed the oil, but she continued. She kept telling herself, "Just for now. Just until we pay the hospital bill. I will stop soon." But customers kept coming back. Again and again. And each time they brought new people. Her income, which used to crawl like a tired snail, suddenly ran like a cheetah. It doubled, then it tripled. In 2 weeks, she earned more than she had earned in 2 months. The salon owner, Madame Sei, noticed the change immediately. "Amara, what are you doing differently? Your corner is always full," she said one afternoon. "Just giving customers what they need," Amara answered with a soft smile. She avoided eye contact. With the extra money, she began making changes at home. She bought her mother new cooking equipment to revive the food stall. She paid off the landlord completely, 3 months ahead. She settled half of Chidi's medical bills, making the doctors finally take his case more seriously. Her parents started praising her again. "Amara, you are our blessing. You are the reason this family is surviving." Their words warmed her heart and deepened her guilt. At the salon, she used her income to upgrade her workspace. She bought new leather chairs with adjustable height, shining silver mirrors that made each customer feel special, premium oils, creams, and towels, soft neck rests for comfort. Her corner became the most admired part of the salon. Even stylists who used to look down on her now peeped at her station with envy. Sandra touched one of the new chairs and whispered, "Amara, you are shining. What's your secret?" Amara smiled a tight smile. "There is no secret. I'm just working harder." But she knew the truth. She knew she was slowly walking deeper into something dangerous, something she couldn't easily turn back from. Yet every time she saw another customer's amazed face, every time she counted her money at night, every time her family thanked her, the fear inside her felt smaller, and the greed, silent, growing, warm, began to fill its place.
Amara's rise in the salon felt like something out of a dream. A month ago, she had worried about hospital bills and eviction. Now, she walked into the salon every morning with expensive new tools, perfume that lingered softly in the air, and confidence in her steps. But something inside her had started to shift. What began as fear and desperation was slowly turning into something darker, something easier to ignore: greed. The first time she mixed the harsh relaxer into her oil, she had been shaking. The second time, her hands still trembled, but by the third week, she no longer hesitated. She no longer felt guilty. Her fingers moved with confidence and speed. At first, she added only a tiny drop, then a slightly bigger drop, and soon she was adding double. Each stronger mixture made the hair look smoother, straighter, glossier than ever. Customers left the salon flipping their hair proudly, telling anyone who complimented them, "Go to Amara, only her hands can do this." The compliments fed her. The money fed her more. She began to dress differently. She bought new shoes. She upgraded her phone. She started taking taxis instead of squeezing into crowded buses. She even bought her father new clothes and paid for her sister's school materials without blinking. Her family did not know where the sudden wealth was coming from. They only celebrated her. But as her life grew brighter, her conscience grew dimmer. One Friday afternoon, as she stood mixing the oil for another client, she paused. The oil jar was half empty now. She stared at it for a moment. The old Amara would have panicked. The new Amara smiled. "Maybe a little more will make the results last longer," she whispered to herself. She scooped a bigger amount, far more than she used at the beginning, and mixed it into the oil confidently. The scent was stronger, sharper, but she no longer cared. All she saw was a future packed with customers and money. The first sign of danger came quietly. A customer named Neka returned 2 days later, scratching her head gently. "Amara, I don't know why my scalp is itching so much. And look." She pulled a few strands from her comb. Some hair came out. Amara's heart skipped, but only for a second. She examined the hair. It wasn't severe, not patchy, not alarming, just a small amount. "Don't worry," she said, her voice calm and soothing. "Your scalp is adjusting. I will treat it." Neka left smiling. Amara left relieved. But then 2 more women returned with similar complaints. "My scalp feels tight. My hairline is a little tender. I lost some strands while washing." It was never too much, never dramatic, never something that made them angry. They all still came back, again and again. Every time they asked for her special treatment. Every time they begged for the same oil that made their hair shine like glass. And every time she increased the mixture just a little more. Sandra noticed something one afternoon. "You are getting too many repeat customers lately," she said, raising an eyebrow. "People never come back this quickly unless something is wrong." Amara smiled sweetly. "Maybe they just like me." Sandra didn't look convinced, but customers still gathered around Amara's corner. The salon owner praised her, her co-workers envied her, her family prayed for her and called her their miracle. So, Amara ignored the small signs. She ignored the itching complaints. She ignored the subtle hair loss. She ignored the quiet fear whispering in the back of her mind. She had tasted success, and now she wanted more. Even if it meant adding more of the dangerous mixture to her oils, even if it meant pretending nothing was happening, even if it meant risking the very thing she worked so hard to build. The greed inside her was no longer whispering. It was speaking clearly. And Amara had begun to listen.
Zuri walked into the salon on a quiet Wednesday morning. The kind of morning when the sun was gentle, the traffic outside was soft, and the salon felt unusually peaceful. She moved with calm steps, as if she carried her own quiet world around her. Her presence was gentle, but something about her made people look twice. She had sharp, thoughtful eyes that studied everything without looking rude. She noticed details most people ignored: the way a stylist held a comb, the pause between each movement, the small glances exchanged by workers. Sandra was the first to greet her. "Welcome. Do you have an appointment?" "Yes," Zuri replied softly. "I booked with Amara." Sandra nodded and pointed her to Amara's corner. Amara turned around, smiled politely, and guided her into the new leather chair she had bought recently, the one customers always admired. "What style would you like today?" Amara asked warmly. "Just a retouch and a simple style. I like your work," Zuri replied softly, her smile small but sincere. Amara relaxed. She liked quiet customers. They rarely asked too many questions. She began preparing her tools and oils with quick, practiced movements. Zuri watched her hands not in suspicion, but with interest, like someone who appreciated careful work. The treatment began smoothly. But as Amara worked, she noticed something unusual. Zuri's eyes were following her movements more closely than most customers did. She was not scrolling on her phone. She was not chatting with anyone. She was observing. Every time Amara opened a drawer, Zuri's gaze moved there. Every time she reached for her mixing bottle, Zuri's eyes sharpened slightly. Every time she pulled out a soothing oil or scalp cream, Zuri leaned a little forward, just a little, as if trying not to miss anything. Amara felt a small wave of uncomfort rise inside her. Was this woman suspicious? Did she notice the relaxer mixture?
Did she sense something was wrong? She pushed the thoughts away quickly and kept working. But Zuri's silence made the air feel heavy, like she was seeing more than she said. When Amara finished the treatment, Zuri ran her fingers through her hair slowly. "This is beautiful. Very smooth. Very soft." Amara smiled proudly. "I'm happy you like it." Zuri stood up and wore her bag. Before leaving, she said something that sent a tiny chill down Amara's back. "You handle hair very well, but you also seem prepared for problems before they come." Amara's smile froze. "What do you mean?" She tried to sound casual. Zuri looked around the station with calm eyes. "You always have soothing oil ready. You always have a towel nearby. Your hands move like someone who knows exactly what complaints to expect." She wasn't accusing Amara. She was simply observing. But the words hit her deeper than any accusation would have. Zuri continued, her voice still soft, still gentle. "I have visited many salons. Most stylists are surprised when customers complain. But you don't look surprised at all." The room felt suddenly quiet. Sandra glanced over from a distance, sensing something tense. Amara forced a laugh. "It is only experience. I've had many years in this job." Zuri didn't argue. She simply smiled politely. "Experience is good, but awareness is better." Then she picked up her purse and walked out of the salon. Calm, graceful, silent. But her words stayed behind. Amara stood frozen for a moment, watching the door slowly close. Her heart was beating faster now, not just from guilt, but from fear. Zuri had not accused Amara. She had not complained. She had not threatened. But she had seen something. Something subtle. Something quiet. Something Amara tried very hard to hide. And Zuri, with her sharp eyes and calm voice, had noticed. The kind of customer who didn't talk too much. The kind of customer who observed. The kind of customer who returned when she sensed the truth. She was the worst kind of customer for someone with a secret. And Amara knew that Zuri's first visit was not the last.
Amara thought she had seen the last of Zuri for a while. Most customers returned after 2 or 3 weeks, not a few days. So when the salon door opened the next Monday morning, and Zuri walked in again, this time with another woman beside her, Amara felt her stomach tighten. Zuri was smiling softly, the same calm expression she always carried. Her friend, a woman in her late 20s named Kamsi, looked curious and excited, like someone visiting a place she had heard many stories about. Sandra greeted them, but Zuri lifted a hand politely. "We are here to see Amara." The words made Amara's heart beat faster. Not because she was afraid of Zuri's intentions, but because Zuri was the kind of woman who saw things too clearly, and Amara did not want anyone with sharp eyes anywhere near her station again. Still, she forced a warm smile. "Welcome, Zuri. You brought a friend today." "Yes," Zuri replied gently. "Kamsi wants to experience your magic hands." Kamsi laughed. "I've heard too much about this place. My cousin said you were the only person she trusts with her hair now." Amara thanked her and motioned them both to sit, Zuri in the waiting seat beside her station, Kamsi in the main chair. While preparing her tools, Amara kept her movements slow and careful. She didn't want Zuri to notice anything strange. But Zuri wasn't talking much today. She just sat quietly, one leg crossed over the other, her eyes steady and thoughtful as they followed everything Amara touched. Amara felt the weight of those eyes like a hand pressing against her back. To distract herself, she began chatting with Kamsi. "So, what style would you like today?" "Just a scalp treatment and a simple weave. Zuri said you make hair feel soft like silk." Zuri smiled pleasantly, but she said nothing. As Amara worked, she reached into her drawer to take out her comb.
She kept her fingers tight around the drawer handle, trying to block the view. But Zuri leaned slightly forward, pretending to adjust her handbag. Her eyes caught a glimpse inside. A small, hidden compartment. A row of unlabeled containers, half shielded from sight. Creams and oils that Amara never placed on the open product shelf. Zuri didn't react, not even with a raised eyebrow. She simply blinked slowly, as if confirming something she already suspected. Her silence was louder than a shout. Amara sensed it immediately. Her hand paused just for a second. She felt her throat tighten. She closed the drawer too quickly. Kamsi didn't notice. Zuri did. To cover her discomfort, Amara began talking again, faster this time. "Your hair is very healthy. You will like the final result." Zuri nodded politely. Yes, Amara's results are always interesting. The way she said it made Amara's palms feel sweaty. As the treatment continued, Zuri kept talking casually, but her eyes remained alert. "How long have you worked here, Amara? What products do you prefer? Do you mix your own oils?" Each question sounded innocent. Each question was delivered with a soft smile. But each question also felt like a careful test. Amara answered carefully, choosing each word like someone walking through a narrow path with danger on both sides. The other stylists didn't notice anything unusual. The salon owner, Madame Sei, was busy in her office. Only Amara felt the growing tension hidden under Zuri's calm presence. When the treatment was done, Kamsi admired her hair joyfully. "This is beautiful. My scalp feels cool, too." Amara smiled, relieved. Zuri also stood, brushing imaginary dust from her dress. "Thank you, Amara. Your work is truly special, and your little drawer is interesting, too." Amara froze. Her hand stopped moving. Her breath stopped for a second. But when she looked up, Zuri was already smiling politely, as if she had not said anything unusual. Then she walked toward the door with Kamsi beside her. Before leaving, Zuri turned slightly and said, "See you soon. I like understanding how things really work." The door closed gently behind them. And for the first time, Amara felt that her quiet observer was no longer just curious. Zuri was watching her, closer than anyone else had ever had. And she knew it was only a matter of time before Zuri returned again. After leaving Amara's salon, Zuri and Kamsi walked slowly down the crowded street of Lagos Island. The sun was bright, but Zuri's mind was focused on something much heavier than the heat. She ran her fingers lightly over her scalp, feeling for the tiniest traces of discomfort. "Is your scalp still okay?" Kamsi asked, glancing curiously at Zuri. "You seemed thoughtful inside the salon." Zuri smiled faintly. "Yes, it is fine. Just observing." Kamsi laughed. "Observing? You mean judging Amara?" Zuri shook her head softly. "No, I mean noticing. Noticing patterns. Things that might otherwise go unnoticed." Kamsi shrugged, but Zuri's focus was already elsewhere. She remembered the hidden drawer in Amara's station, the unlabeled containers, the way Amara handled them, with care, but almost anticipation. There was something too deliberate about it, too controlled. Over the next few days, Zuri paid careful attention to her hair. She noted how it felt immediately after the treatment, soft and shiny, yes, but also tingling slightly at the edges. By the third day, that faint tingling turned into mild itching. She scratched lightly, but noticed that the itch seemed to deepen the longer she left it alone. Zuri's eyes narrowed. Something was not right. She recalled how some women in her office had commented on quick returns to the salon after treatments, claiming discomfort or sudden issues with their hair. At first, she had dismissed the idea. Perhaps it was coincidence. Perhaps it was simply the nature of styling or heat. But now, after personal experience, she began connecting the dots.
There was a pattern, subtle but undeniable. Amara's customers were returning unusually quickly, sometimes before their hair should have required maintenance. Her suspicion grew. Zuri decided not to confront Amara. Confronting her would risk making her presence obvious. If something dangerous was happening, she needed proof first. Quiet observation would be safer. She would not react openly. She would watch, compare, and wait. She began documenting small details about her scalp and hair. She took photographs, compared the shine, texture, and scalp condition before and after the treatment. Every tiny patch of irritation, every small area where the hair seemed weaker, she noted carefully. She even recalled conversations with friends who had visited Amara's salon recently. Their experiences mirrored her own. Mild discomfort that quickly drew them back, more frequent than normal salon visits. Zuri realized she needed to gather more than just personal evidence. She would need to watch Amara during her work, without raising suspicion. She needed to see the hidden drawer again, the small containers that Amara never displayed. But she could not do it alone. She needed someone to accompany her as a new customer, someone who would appear ordinary and oblivious, so Amara would behave naturally. Zuri contacted Mosi, a friend who trusted her judgment. Mosi agreed to help, intrigued and concerned. Together, they began planning a quiet return to the salon. They would pretend to be ordinary clients while observing every small movement, every subtle action of Amara's hands, every glance toward her hidden products. Zuri knew that if she discovered anything suspicious, she would have to act carefully. One wrong move could tip Amara off. One careless question could alert her. For now, she decided to remain calm, patient, and quiet. Observation first, judgment later. That week, Zuri felt a mix of anticipation and unease. Every time she walked past the salon, she noticed small changes. A new signboard, fresh chairs, brighter mirrors. Amara's business was growing, yet that quiet, controlled tension in Amara's hands lingered in Zuri's memory. Zuri whispered to herself as she returned home one evening, "Something is wrong here. I just need to be patient and see it clearly." The quiet detective within her was awake now, and she knew there would be more visits, more opportunities to see the truth hidden behind Amara's polite smile and practiced hands. The first suspicion had taken root, and nothing would be the same.
Amara woke up one bright morning feeling unusually proud. Her salon, once a tiny wooden shop along a quiet street, now buzzed with activity. Women of all ages filled the chairs, chatting, laughing, and pointing at mirrors. Some came early, others rushed during lunch breaks, all eager for her treatments. The small trick she had used weeks ago was working far beyond what she had imagined. Her bank account reflected the change, and with it came a new sense of power and confidence. For the first time, Amara allowed herself to enjoy the fruits of her labor. She went shopping for clothes she had only admired from shop windows before, buying bright Ankara dresses, sleek shoes, and delicate jewelry. She purchased a new smartphone, the latest model, and showed it off to her mother with a broad grin. The small luxury of owning something new made her feel untouchable, as if all her past struggles had melted away in the glow of her success. She also began experimenting with expensive wigs, layering them on top of her natural hair to create dramatic styles that drew attention. Every morning, she would stand in front of her new full-length mirror, adjusting the wigs carefully, making sure every curl, every braid, every shine looked perfect. To Amara, these were not just accessories. They were symbols of her rise from hardship, the visible proof that she had arrived. Her neighbors noticed the change immediately. Mrs. Ijayoma from across the street clapped her hands in excitement when she saw Amara step out in a bright dress and sparkling earrings. "Amara, my dear, look at you! From struggling at home to shining like this? You are truly blessed," she said, her eyes wide with admiration. Amara smiled, nodded, and thanked her politely. But inside, she felt a twinge of guilt she quickly pushed aside. No one knew the secret behind her rapid success. The tiny chemical mixture she had started applying to her customers' scalps. The very thing that made them return sooner than normal. Amara had become careful about hiding her methods, confident that no one could ever suspect her. She told herself it was a business strategy, a survival tactic. But the truth was, the longer she continued, the more careless she became. The thrill of her newfound lifestyle distracted her from caution. With the increased income, Amara improved her salon. She bought larger chairs, polished mirrors, and a bright ring light for taking pictures of her work. Branded nylon bags now carried hair accessories for customers, giving her business an air of professionalism she had only dreamed of. Even her mother, once anxious about money, began to relax and praise Amara for the changes she was making. Luxury and admiration made Amara feel untouchable. She laughed louder at the salon, joked freely with customers, and spent her afternoons planning which new wig or dress she would buy next. The small pangs of worry that had once kept her awake at night were fading. They were replaced with excitement and confidence, a dangerous mix that made her forget the careful restraint she had maintained in her first weeks. Yet, beneath the surface, something quiet began to stir. Zuri, the calm and observant customer, had not forgotten what she had seen. She had left the salon the last time with subtle doubt, but clear determination. And while Amara celebrated her new life, luxury, attention, and admiration, Zuri's quiet vigilance continued, preparing to uncover what Amara's success truly depended on. Amara's life had changed overnight. The small wooden shop, once filled with fear and uncertainty, now gleamed with prosperity. But the seeds of carelessness, mixed with greed, were beginning to take root, and soon the consequences of her actions would stretch far beyond the polished mirrors and stylish wigs she now loved so dearly. For now she basked in the applause, unaware that her quiet observers were already watching, calculating, and preparing for the moment her hidden truth might be revealed.
The mornings at Amara's salon were no longer quiet. The small shop, once empty and lonely, now echoed with the sounds of chatter, laughter, and occasional distress. Amara had grown used to the rhythm of her busy days, moving from chair to chair with a practiced smile. Her hands worked quickly, skillfully, and with the ease of someone confident in her craft. But that week, something changed. A few customers returned unusually quickly, not with compliments or praise, but with complaints. The first was Mrs. Funke, a woman in her 40s who had visited for box braids just 3 days earlier. She arrived early one morning, her face twisted with discomfort. "Amara," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "my scalp, it feels like it's burning. What did you do?" Amara's heart beat faster, but she did not panic. She carefully examined Mrs. Funke's scalp, tilting her head and furrowing her brows. "Oh my goodness," she exclaimed loudly. "This is strange. I've never had this happen before. Let me fix it immediately." She moved quickly, applying her usual treatments, talking gently to reassure the worried customer, hiding the small tremor in her hands. Word spread quickly. By midweek, 2 more women came back complaining of the same tingling, burning sensation and slight irritation on their scalps. Some noticed small strands of hair had fallen out. Yet no one suspected Amara's secret. Each time she responded with shock, concern, and sympathy. Her voice carried the perfect blend of caring stylist and professional expert. She reassured them, saying it was normal for sensitive scalps or new braids to react at first. Inside, Amara felt a small pang of guilt, but she pushed it aside. The mixture she had started applying had worked exactly as she had intended. Customers were returning sooner, paying again, and she was profiting more than ever. The numbers on her ledger, the sight of her full shelves, and the growing tips in her jar fueled a dangerous confidence. Each complaint became just another opportunity to increase her earnings.
By the end of the week, the pattern was clear. Some women returned after only 2 days, begging Amara to treat their itchy scalps. Others returned crying softly, worried about small red patches or hair that seemed thinner than before. She handled them all with the same calm and measured demeanor, applying treatments, soothing voices, and gentle hands. Inwardly, however, she knew exactly why they were coming back so soon. Still, she convinced herself it was only business. "I am helping them," she whispered silently as she worked. "They trust me, and I am saving my salon. If I don't do this, everything I've built will fall apart." Meanwhile, neighbors and onlookers praised her even more. They saw her running the salon efficiently, treating customers carefully, and handling complaints with professionalism. None of them suspected the secret behind her constant business. To them, she was a rising star, a young woman turning hard work into visible success. Amara bought new products and continued upgrading the salon. Expensive wigs, mirrors, chairs, and even a ring light for taking photos of her styles. Her mother, once worried, now admired her daughter's achievements. Money was flowing in faster than ever before, yet the burning and itching complaints were becoming more frequent. Still, Amara told herself it was only business. She reassured herself that no permanent harm was happening, that the small chemical amounts she used were safe, that this was simply the cost of success. Unbeknownst to her, the quiet observer Zuri was beginning to notice the rising number of complaints. She had started documenting every detail: how quickly customers returned, their visible discomfort, and the patterns of Amara's hidden treatments. A slow, careful investigation was taking shape in her mind. Amara, meanwhile, laughed a little louder, moved a little more confidently, and enjoyed the attention her salon received. She did not realize that each complaint, each irritated scalp, was slowly sowing the seeds of her eventual reckoning. Her confidence was growing, but so too was the quiet shadow of suspicion waiting to catch her off guard. For now, her hands were steady, her shelves were full, and her income was higher than she had ever imagined. Yet every returning customer, every whispered complaint was a reminder that the line between clever business and dangerous greed was thinner than she thought. Amara sat alone in her salon one quiet afternoon, staring at the row of bottles and containers neatly arranged on her shelf. The small, unlabeled jar, the one she had started with months ago, caught her eye. It had brought her more customers than she could ever remember in a single week. Her heart beat faster at the thought. She knew the effect it had on their scalps. She knew that itching, discomfort, and subtle irritation made them return sooner, begging for her help. And yet, she could not stop thinking about the possibilities if she pushed a little further. She shook her head as if trying to rid herself of the thought. "No," she whispered to herself, "I'm already making enough. I don't need more. I have to be careful." But the voice of temptation was stronger. She remembered how empty her shop had been at first, how her mother had worried, how her brother needed medicine, how every day of inaction had almost destroyed her family. That fear had pushed her once. Now, the lure of more money, faster success, and admiration from neighbors was pulling her even harder. That evening, after closing, she began her experiments. A few drops more relaxer mixed into the scalp oil, a tiny portion of another chemical added to the cream. Nothing she thought would cause permanent damage. She measured carefully, stirring slowly, telling herself she was still in control. "It is just for the scalp," she murmured. "It will go away. No one will be hurt. This is only temporary." The next morning, her first customer of the day arrived, a young woman named Ada, who had braided her hair just 3 days before.
Amara welcomed her with a warm smile, her hands steady and gentle. She prepared the mixture and applied it carefully, her thoughts focused on the reaction it would cause. Within hours, Ada's scalp itched intensely, and she returned almost in tears that evening, pleading for relief. Amara soothed her, massaged her scalp, and applied her special treatment with the same calm, caring words she had perfected. Ada left satisfied but uncomfortable and paid more than before. Word spread quickly among returning clients. They came faster, sometimes even just 2 days after a previous appointment. Amara's shelves emptied faster, her cash box filled faster, and her confidence swelled. Each complaint became another opportunity, each return another proof of her success. Neighbors admired her efficiency and her growing business, unaware of the hidden method behind the rising profits. Inside, Amara justified everything to herself. The mixture caused discomfort, yes, but she reminded herself that it was temporary. No one had lost large patches of hair, and no one had permanent burns. She was helping her family survive, keeping her shop alive, and proving that her talent could change her life. That reasoning made the temptation feel like a necessity, like a small sin required for survival. Yet deep inside, a quiet fear started creeping into her thoughts. What if the discomfort became permanent? What if someone suspected her secret? She shook the fear away each time, blaming it on nerves, on worry for her family, or on imagination. She told herself she had the skill, the control, and the ability to stop at any time. But as the days went on, Amara began experimenting more boldly. Slightly stronger mixtures, slightly faster applications, small variations in chemical blends. She reassured herself each time, this is temporary, this is harmless, I am only ensuring survival. Unseen by her, however, Zuri continued to watch quietly. She noticed the increasing frequency of returns, the subtle signs of irritation, and the new confidence in Amara's smile, a confidence that did not match concern for her customers. Zuri's mind began forming plans to uncover the truth, while Amara, caught in the rush of temptation and greed, unknowingly edged closer to a reckoning that she could no longer control. For now, the salon thrived. Money flowed, customers returned quickly, and Amara felt unstoppable. But each mixture, each impatient customer, and each hidden container brought her closer to a moment when her choices could no longer be concealed.
It was a busy Thursday afternoon in Amara's salon. The morning had started like any other. The small wooden shop smelled faintly of hair oil and shampoo, the fans whirred softly, and the chairs were occupied by returning customers, some fidgeting, some chatting, all eager to feel Amara's skilled hands. She moved from one chair to another with confidence, a bright smile on her face, her hands steady, her mind focused on the familiar rhythm of braiding and styling. Ada, a regular client who had visited 3 days prior, sat nervously in one of the chairs near the window. Her hair had already begun to itch slightly, but she had hoped the sensation would fade. Amara approached with the mixture carefully prepared the night before, stirring the unlabeled jar with calm precision. "Don't worry, Ada," she said softly. "It's just a normal treatment. It will make your hair even better and last longer." Ada nodded, trusting Amara's words, unaware of the tiny danger in the chemical mix. As Amara applied the mixture, Ada's discomfort increased faster than expected. A sudden dizziness swept over her. She paused, her hands gripping the arms of the chair, her face paling. "Amara, I feel dizzy," she whispered. Her voice trembled, A faint sheen of sweat appeared on her forehead. Other customers glanced up, sensing something unusual. A few murmured in concern, their eyes wide. Amara's heart skipped a beat, a sharp pang of panic shooting through her chest. Her mind raced, but her expression remained calm and reassuring. She quickly took a step back, kneeling beside Ada's chair. "It's all right, Ada," she said gently, her voice soft but steady. "Some people react this way to treatments at first. It is completely normal. Sit back and breathe. You'll feel better in a few minutes." Ada's eyes fluttered as she leaned back, her breathing shallow. A few customers whispered to each other, their worry growing. One of them asked quietly, "Is she okay?" Amara smiled and nodded. "Yes, she's fine. Sometimes the scalp is sensitive. That's all. Nothing serious. Everyone reacts differently." Despite the words, Amara's mind was a storm. She knew the reaction had been stronger than usual. Ada's dizziness, although temporary, was a dangerous signal she could not ignore. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted Ada's position and rubbed her shoulders. She forced herself to think clearly. She had to calm the situation without revealing her secret. "Let's give her some water," Amara suggested, her tone light and caring. She handed Ada a bottle, and Ada sipped cautiously, her color returning slowly. Amara's customers watched closely, some still uneasy, but most trusting the calm reassurance she projected. By the time Ada sat up fully, smiling faintly and nodding in thanks, the tension in the salon eased, but Amara's heart continued to pound. After Ada left, Amara took a deep breath and wiped her sweaty palms on her apron. She glanced at the small drawer where the unlabeled jar sat hidden. The mixture had worked in terms of bringing Ada back sooner, but this incident was different. It had frightened others who were waiting for their turn. For the first time, a sharp sense of fear pierced through her usual rationalizations. Could one wrong step ruin everything? Could the discomfort become serious? She quickly reassured herself. It was temporary. She's fine. Everyone always trusts me. Still, the event lingered in her mind, a reminder that the balance she had maintained between survival, greed, and risk was more fragile than she liked to admit. Meanwhile, Zuri, sitting quietly at the back of the salon, observed the whole scene with sharp, calculating eyes. She noted Ada's reaction, Amara's calm yet shaky handling, and the unlabeled jar Amara had taken out. Zuri's suspicion grew stronger. She decided to pay even closer attention, knowing that the answers she sought were hidden in the way Amara treated her clients and in the small, mysterious container she kept out of sight. As the day ended, Amara closed the salon feeling both triumphant and uneasy. The incident with Ada reminded her that her choices, though profitable, carried risks she could no longer ignore. Yet deep down, a dangerous thought whispered again. More discomfort might bring more customers, more money, and more power. She shook her head and tried to push it away, but she knew it was only a matter of time before the temptation returned, stronger than ever.
By the following week, the small streets around Amara's salon were buzzing with quiet murmurs. It started slowly, almost imperceptibly, as neighbors whispered to one another while passing the shop. Some had heard from friends, others from relatives who had visited and experienced unusual discomfort after their hair treatments. The whispers were never loud, but they carried an edge of suspicion. "Did you hear about Amara's new treatment?" one would ask quietly. "Yes, my cousin said her scalp started itching like crazy," another would reply, nodding seriously. Inside the salon, Amara remained busy, moving from chair to chair, braiding, twisting, and smoothing hair with her usual confidence. Yet the energy she once felt was tinged with unease. A few regular customers hesitated to come as early as before, preferring to wait until the whispers died down, or hoping someone else would report back first. Even some of her loyal clients began asking questions about the products she used, though none had yet accused her openly. Amara noticed the shift immediately. Her once crowded shop had a few empty chairs during the usual peak hours. She frowned, trying to maintain her cheerful facade, but her heart thumped faster with every glance at the quiet corners of the salon. "It's nothing," she muttered under her breath as she swept up stray hair, telling herself that people always talked. But deep inside, a knot of worry formed. She could feel the first cracks in the reputation she had built so painstakingly. Outside, Zuri watched discreetly, seated on a bench near the fruit stand across the street. She noticed a woman linger at the entrance, hesitating before deciding not to enter. Another turned back mid-step, shaking her head as she whispered to a friend. Zuri's eyes narrowed. She could see the signs clearly. People were becoming cautious, curious, and suspicious. The reactions confirmed her suspicions about Amara's treatments. Zuri made a mental note to keep a closer watch, realizing that the situation was growing riskier for everyone involved. Back in the salon, Amara tried to calm herself. She prepared her mixture, double-checked her products, and smiled at the few customers who had come. "It's just a small slump," she told herself, forcing confidence into her voice. She greeted each client warmly, braided carefully, and applied the mixture with her usual precision. Some of the women noticed a slight discomfort during the treatment, but attributed it to sensitivity or heat, nodding politely and finishing the session. Even so, the whispers outside the salon continued. They spread slowly from the street corner to the nearby church to the fruit stalls and markets. "I don't know if I trust her anymore," one woman said to another while arranging cassava and peppers. Another replied, "They say her treatments make the scalp burn." A group of young women paused by the salon, casting quick glances inside before walking away. The sound of gossip reached Amara's ears like a faint, chilling wind, though she could not see who was talking. As the afternoon drew to a close, Amara counted her small earnings, noting that they were less than usual. The anxiety that had been simmering in the back of her mind now grew stronger. She realized that the whispers were not just harmless talk, they were affecting her business. Her hands that had once moved confidently now trembled slightly as she rearranged products on the shelves. The fear returned, stronger than before. What if the customers stopped coming entirely? What if the neighborhood turned against her? Amara cleaned the salon silently after everyone left, her heart heavy. She stared at the small, unlabeled jar tucked in the drawer, the one that had brought her so much income and danger at the same time. The whispers outside reminded her that success gained through shortcuts was never fully secure. She leaned against the counter, sighing deeply, her mind filled with the difficult choice ahead: continue with the mixture and risk more suspicion, or stop and watch her profits shrink. Meanwhile, Zuri continued her quiet observations, taking note of every nervous glance, every hesitant customer, and every subtle sign that the salon's reputation was beginning to waver. She knew the truth was close, and she would be ready when the moment came to expose it. The tension in the small street grew thicker with each whisper, and Amara, unaware of the watchful eyes upon her, could feel the first tremors of trouble approaching.
Zuri had been patient. She never rushed, never confronted, and never let her curiosity show. She knew that to uncover the truth, she had to watch carefully, listen intently, and gather information quietly. Over the past few weeks, she had visited Amara's salon multiple times, each time pretending to be a regular customer while observing closely. She had also spoken discreetly to some of the women who had left the salon in discomfort, asking subtle questions about their experiences. "My scalp started itching the day after my braids," one friend confessed in hushed tones, avoiding the ears of passers-by. Another whispered, "I thought it was just me, but my neighbor said the same thing happened to her last week." The stories were consistent, the pattern undeniable. Each client had experienced irritation, itching, or mild hair loss shortly after visiting the salon. Zuri's suspicions solidified. She began forming a theory in her mind. Amara's treatments, while neat and precise, were not the usual salon work. Something was being added, something hidden. Zuri knew that scalp irritation could happen naturally, but not for so many people at the same time, especially when the treatments were so carefully done. It was deliberate. The calm, confident way Amara handled each complaint suggested she already expected it to happen. One afternoon, Zuri returned to the salon with a friend, Mosi, pretending that Mosi was a new customer. Zuri watched every movement of Amara's hands, every glance toward her drawers and products. She noticed a small container, different from the neatly labeled creams on display, tucked carefully in the back of a drawer. Amara had retrieved it quietly before applying a product to Mosi's scalp. That was the moment Zuri felt certain. This was the hidden ingredient causing the irritation. After Mosi left, Zuri took notes in her small journal. She recorded the names of customers she had spoken with, the dates they had visited the salon, and the symptoms they had experienced. She compared their stories carefully, looking for patterns in the timing and severity of the reactions. Each piece of information strengthened her conviction. Amara was intentionally adding something to make clients return sooner. Zuri knew she had to be careful. She could not confront Amara without proof, and she could not risk warning the wrong person. If Amara suspected she was being watched, she might change her methods or cover her tracks. Zuri decided to continue her quiet investigation, visiting the salon under different pretenses, sometimes alone, sometimes with friends, always observing without drawing attention. She also began to ask subtle questions to other salon owners nearby, curious about normal hair treatments. "Do you ever have clients complaining about itching or hair shedding after braiding?" she would ask casually. Some said yes, but none had experienced the frequency or intensity that Amara's clients reported. The evidence was piling up in Zuri's mind. By the end of the week, Zuri had a clear picture forming. She understood that Amara's rise in business was no longer only due to her skill. It was being fueled by discomfort and irritation she had secretly caused. The thought made Zuri's stomach tighten. She knew she had to act carefully, or else innocent people would continue to suffer. That evening, Zuri sat on the porch of her small apartment in Enugu, reviewing her notes. She planned her next visits to the salon meticulously, deciding to record discreetly, watch closely, and wait for the perfect moment to confirm her theory. She whispered to herself, "I need proof. I cannot let this continue." The quiet streets outside were calm, but Zuri's mind was alive with strategy. She knew Amara's next mistake could be the key to exposing the truth, and she would be ready.
The salon was alive with the usual buzz: chattering women, the hum of hair dryers, the smell of oils and creams mixing in the air. Amara moved from chair to chair with practiced ease, her smile bright, her hands steady. But Zuri was not here to relax her hair. Today she had made a decision. She would confront Amara, quietly but directly, about the small drawer she had noticed weeks ago. Zuri chose a moment when Amara was helping another customer. She sat patiently in her chair, pretending to admire the posters on the wall, while her mind traced every detail of what she had seen. When the customer left, Zuri motioned for Amara to come closer. "Amara," she said softly, her tone calm, "I noticed something the last time I came here. There's a small drawer you keep closed. What's inside it?" Amara froze mid-step, the comb in her hand hovering over the client's hair. She blinked rapidly, trying to maintain her composure. It's
It's just extra supplies, she stammered, forcing a smile. Nothing special, really, just products I use sometimes. Zuri leaned in slightly, keeping her voice low so only Amara could hear. Why are they not labeled like the others, and why do you keep them hidden? Her sharp eyes never left Amara's face, noting the tiny tremble in her hands, the quick glance toward the drawer. Amara laughed nervously, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You worry too much. Everyone has a drawer or two they don't show. It's normal. You should not think too much about it. She tried to move past the question, returning to the next customer, but Zuri's calm persistence made her pause. Amara, she said again, softer this time but with a firmness that could not be ignored. I am not here to embarrass you. I just want to understand. Why hide something from your clients? Why risk trust? For the first time that day, Amara's confident smile faltered. She felt heat rise to her cheeks. Her mind raced. Should she explain? Should she lie more convincingly? She could see the subtle curiosity of other clients nearby, catching a hint of tension in the air. Her hands tightened around the comb, the sweat on her palms betraying her calm demeanor. It's nothing dangerous. I use those sometimes for hair treatments. They work better that way. Her eyes darted toward the drawer, then back at Zuri. The slight quiver in her lips and the way her shoulders stiffened made her denial less convincing than she hoped. Zuri nodded slowly, her expression neutral. I understand you want your treatments to be effective, but hiding them only raises questions. You know that, right? She let her words hang in the air. Amara felt the weight of every eye in the salon on her, even if no one was speaking. The room seemed to close in around Amara. She was used to compliments, to trust, to clients following her every instruction. But Zuri's calm confrontation was different. It was quiet, unshakable, and it made her feel exposed in a way no complaint or praise ever had. Amara forced a nod and turned back to continue her work, but inside panic was building. Every movement felt heavier, every smile forced. Zuri had not shouted, had not made a scene, yet she had achieved more than any rumor could have. Amara knew she had to think fast, or this calm, observant woman could unravel everything she had built. As Zuri left the salon that afternoon, she glanced back one last time. Amara's eyes followed her, a mixture of fear, shame, and calculation swirling in them. Zuri had planted the seed of doubt, and Amara knew it. The hidden drawer, once a secret, was now under scrutiny, and the consequences of that scrutiny had only just begun. The next morning, Amara arrived at the salon earlier than usual. The sun had barely risen over Lagos, painting the streets in shades of gold and orange. Normally, she would feel a spark of excitement, the hum of the hair dryers, the chatter of clients, the rhythm of her hands working swiftly. But today, a heavy weight pressed on her chest. Zuri's calm confrontation from yesterday replayed in her mind like a warning she could not ignore. Amara moved slowly around the small shop, adjusting chairs and straightening bottles on the shelf. Her hands shook slightly as she opened the unlabeled drawer. Inside, the small containers of mixed relaxer cream stared back at her. She had once thought they were her secret weapon, her shortcut to fast success. Now they felt like ticking time bombs, each one holding a potential disaster. Her mind raced. Could Zuri be right? What if she reported the hidden mixture? What if the whispers from the neighborhood began to grow louder, reaching the ears of the local authorities? Amara felt panic creep in, clawing at her composure. She had built her life on the profits from these mixtures. Her new clothes, the phone she had just bought, the small comforts she now afforded her family. Everything was on the line. Yet, deep inside, a part of her screamed that she needed to stop.
That part reminded her of the small reactions she had started noticing. A few customers complaining of itching, another with tiny red spots on the scalp, a woman who had flinched while combing her hair. Nothing had been catastrophic yet, but the warning signs were there. Amara sat for a long moment on the plastic stool by the mirror. She rested her face in her hands, thinking about Zuri, quiet, observant, and relentless in her calmness. Unlike others, Zuri had not yelled, screamed, or shamed her publicly. Instead, she had done something worse. She had planted doubt in Amara's mind, doubt that refused to leave. Her thoughts turned to her family. Her younger brother's cough from yesterday, her mother worrying over the failing business, the pile of bills still waiting at home. Stopping the mixture meant slowing down her income. Slower income meant fewer resources to care for them. And yet, continuing meant living with the fear that one day everything could collapse around her, that a single confrontation or a single exposure could destroy her reputation, her salon, and the trust she had fought so hard to gain. For hours, Amara paced back and forth in the tiny shop. She touched each chair, adjusted the mirrors again, and checked the inventory, but nothing brought clarity. Her mind flitted between fear and greed, the two emotions warring inside her. She wondered if she could somehow continue secretly, but more carefully. Maybe smaller doses, less visible effects. Maybe if she controlled it perfectly, no one would suspect. But deep down, she knew there was no perfect control. Every time a client returned early, scratching their scalp, every complaint brushed aside with a gentle smile, she felt the edge of disaster sharpening. Amara realized that fear had returned in full force, sharper than the anxiety she had felt in the early days before her salon became profitable. Now it was mixed with the fear of losing everything she had built, of losing her new lifestyle, her status, and the sense of power she had gained. By mid-afternoon, the first client arrived, smiling and expecting the usual careful attention. Amara forced her hands to be steady, her voice calm, her face cheerful. Inside, however, every heartbeat reminded her of Zuri, the quiet observation, the hidden drawer, the questions. They were still there, lingering in her mind. Amara realized that she could not act impulsively. Every move now had to be calculated. She had entered a dangerous game, one where fear and greed danced together, and one wrong step could undo everything. Her future, her reputation, and her family's comfort all balanced on the edge of a delicate knife.
That night, Lagos was quiet, save for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional shout from a street vendor closing shop. Inside her small salon, Amara sat alone, the glow of a single ceiling bulb casting long shadows on the walls. The day had been busy, but the busyness felt different, more tense, less triumphant. Every customer she had served seemed to haunt her thoughts, especially Zuri, whose calm observation earlier in the day refused to leave her mind. Amara moved slowly toward the hidden drawer beneath the counter. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside, the small, unlabeled containers sat neatly, as if waiting for her next decision. Each one carried the chemical mixture that had transformed her struggling salon into the busiest in the neighborhood. But they also carried a secret danger she could no longer ignore. She pulled out the first container, feeling its weight in her hand. The familiar scent of the harsh relaxer mingled with her usual hair cream, a smell she had once thought comforting, but now found almost sinister.
Her heart beat faster. Could she truly continue using these mixtures without someone noticing? Every client who returned early, scratching their scalp or complaining quietly, was a reminder that the line she was walking was razor thin. Amara's mind raced. She thought about her family, the sick brother, her mother struggling to keep the small business afloat, the bills piling up on the table at home. All of this depended on her salon's success. Without the mixtures, her income would slow, and the small comforts she had managed to provide would vanish. But using the chemicals meant taking a risk that could destroy her career, her reputation, even the trust of her loyal customers. She placed the container back on the shelf inside the drawer and stared at it for a long moment. Her fingers brushed the lid as if testing her own resolve. The temptation was strong. The ease with which customers returned, the speed with which her income had grown, the thrill of finally controlling her own life, all of it pulled her toward continuing. After a deep breath, Amara made her decision. She would continue using the mixtures. But this time, she would be smarter. She would hide them better, ensuring that no one could stumble upon the drawer as Zuri had. She would plan her actions more carefully, measure her doses more precisely, and control every detail to minimize risk. The thought gave her a temporary sense of control, even if fear still lingered in the corners of her mind. She cleaned the small containers, placed them deeper in the drawer, and covered them with a folded towel. The drawer now seemed less like a secret weapon and more like a hidden trap, one that could ensnare her at any moment. Amara closed it carefully, pressing her hands against the polished wood as if sealing her own fate. For hours, she sat on the stool in front of the mirror, her reflection staring back at her. The woman looking back seemed both familiar and foreign, confident yet fearful, clever yet trapped, victorious yet vulnerable. The quiet of the night pressed down on her, amplifying every worry, every doubt, every lingering sense of guilt. Finally, she stood and walked to the small counter where she kept her regular hair products. She arranged them neatly, making sure nothing appeared out of place. Tomorrow, she told herself, she would act as usual, friendly, careful, professional. No one would suspect the danger that lurked just beneath the surface. As she switched off the light and stepped out of the salon into the calm night air, she whispered to herself, "I can handle this. I have to." But even as the words left her lips, a small knot of fear twisted in her stomach, reminding her that every risky decision carried consequences she might not be able to escape.
The next morning, the streets of Lagos were alive with the usual noise. Street hawkers calling out, cars honking, and motorbikes weaving through traffic. Inside Amara's salon, the day began like any other. The smell of fresh shampoo and hair oil mixed with the faint chemical scent lingering from the previous days. Amara greeted each customer with her practiced smile, her hands moving quickly, almost mechanically. She was confident, careful, and seemingly in complete control. But Zuri was in the salon again, quietly observing. She entered as if she were a regular customer, holding a small notebook and her phone in her bag. Her calm demeanor never wavered, and she greeted Amara politely, asking for a simple braid style. Amara welcomed her warmly, unaware that every movement she made was being watched. Zuri positioned herself in a corner where she could see the counter clearly. When Amara stepped aside at the end of the braiding session, Zuri noticed the familiar hidden drawer. Her heart beat faster, but she remained composed. She subtly took out her phone and clicked pictures of the small, unlabeled containers inside. Each image captured the way Amara had hidden the dangerous mixtures, the arrangement of the bottles, and the secretive manner in which they were used. As Amara returned to finish the braid, Zuri put her phone away and pretended to examine herself in the mirror.
She made mental notes about every detail, the way Amara spoke to customers, the speed at which she worked, and the subtle, nervous anticipation that sometimes flickered across her face whenever someone complained. Zuri was careful. She would not make a scene. She would gather enough evidence first. After the customer left, Zuri approached her friend Mosi, who had agreed to observe from outside. "I've got pictures. These are not just ordinary products. Amara is hiding something, and I need to find out what it is." Mosi nodded, sharing the quiet concern in Zuri's eyes. They both knew that confronting Amara without proper proof could backfire. Over the next few days, Zuri spent her afternoons visiting the salon, always under the guise of a customer or someone accompanying a friend. She quietly recorded details, noting which clients returned quickly, how they reacted after treatments, and which products Amara used secretly. She also made subtle inquiries in the neighborhood, asking other stylists in passing about unusual hair treatments or products that cause scalp discomfort. Every conversation, every observation added pieces to the puzzle. Zuri's curiosity led her to a small beauty supply store not far from the salon. She asked about recent purchases of strong relaxers or chemical products. The shopkeeper mentioned that a young stylist had been buying small amounts of very strong relaxer in unmarked containers. Zuri's suspicions deepened. The timeline matched perfectly. With the sudden surge in Amara's returning customers, Zuri had enough to confront Amara directly. But that evening, Zuri sat in her small apartment overlooking the Lego skyline, reviewing the photos on her phone. She traced the movements of the containers, the timing of customer complaints, and Amara's hidden actions. Everything confirmed her worst fears. A decision had to be made, she thought, and it had to be precise. Zuri understood that revealing the truth was no longer just a matter of curiosity. It was a matter of safety for the many women trusting Amara with their hair. As she switched off the lights and prepared for bed, Zuri whispered softly to herself, "Tomorrow I will get closer. I must know everything before anyone else gets hurt." Her eyes, sharp and determined, reflected the quiet storm brewing inside her. The game of observation and exposure had only just begun. Zuri spent the next few days meticulously going through every piece of information she had collected. She reviewed her photographs of Amara's hidden containers, the notes she had taken while observing her in the salon, and the testimonies she had quietly gathered from returning customers. Each image, each observation, painted a clearer picture. But there was one detail that made her pause: the chemical composition of the products. Using her phone and a small online resource, Zuri compared the ingredients labels she had managed to photograph with standard relaxers and scalp treatments. Her eyes widened as she recognized names of chemicals far stronger than anything normally used on the scalp. Some were even known to cause burns or hair thinning if not applied carefully. Zuri realized that Amara had not only been accelerating hair damage intentionally, but she was using chemicals that were far more dangerous than she likely understood herself. But that was not all. While cross-referencing suppliers, Zuri stumbled upon a curious note in one of the purchase records, the name of a stylist she recognized from years ago, Amara's former mentor, Mrs. Clara, the one who had never trusted her to style real customers during her apprenticeship. Zuri's heart skipped. Could it be that Amara's sudden access to these powerful chemicals had roots in her past? And why had Clara's name appeared in these purchase logs? The discovery made Zuri's mind race with questions. Had Amara learned more than she realized while working under Clara? Was Clara somehow connected to the dangerous products that were now being secretly used in the salon? Zuri leaned back in her chair, staring at the Lego skyline from her window. The city lights flickered, but her mind was too busy to notice them. She felt a mix of fear and resolve. If Amara had unwittingly inherited knowledge or even connections from her mentor, it meant the problem was deeper than she initially thought. This was no longer just about a single stylist cutting corners. It was part of a chain of secrets and dangerous practices that could affect many more people. She opened her notebook and began writing everything down: observations,
timelines, chemical names, customer reactions, and the mysterious link to Mrs. Clara. Her handwriting was hurried but precise. She wanted to make sure no detail was left out. As she wrote, she realized that confronting Amara now would be more complicated than she had anticipated. She needed proof, understanding, and a plan. Any misstep could put her in danger or allow Amara to cover up before the truth emerged. The following morning, Zuri returned to the salon under the guise of another routine visit. She sat quietly, observing Amara as she prepared her products, smiled at customers, and moved with practiced confidence. But this time, Zuri's attention was sharper. She was not only watching Amara's actions, she was trying to see if the stylist knew she was being watched, if she suspected that the hidden drawer could be discovered, and whether there was a connection to her mentor in how she handled these substances. By the end of her observation, Zuri had gathered enough to know one thing for certain. Amara's method was deliberate, her knowledge extensive, and the risk far higher than anyone suspected. But what truly shocked Zuri, the revelation that made her pulse quicken and her stomach turn, was still hidden in her notes, something she had only partially pieced together. She knew it would change everything once fully understood, but she had not yet deciphered it completely. Zuri left the salon that evening, her mind heavy with thoughts. The city hummed around her, but all she could think about was the puzzle that had suddenly become far larger than a single salon. She whispered to herself as she walked through the crowded streets of Lagos, "I must know the whole truth, whatever it takes."